So James is having some leftover pizza, the cauliflower crust stuff, and I'm having overnight oatmeal. It's really easy to make. You know, it's funny, I was at Shoppers the other day, Shoppers Drug Mart, and they had containers that were labeled overnight oatmeal. And so presumably you just add water to it and let it sit or whatever. It's just ridiculous. You don't need that. Just put your own container in the fridge with oatmeal and water. That's how you make overnight oatmeal. But I've mixed in some Greek yogurt, and I usually make my overnight oatmeal with just ground cinnamon, and then I put ground flax seeds when I'm eating it. But lately I've been making it with chia seeds, so in the oatmeal, so they plump up with the oatmeal overnight, and then anyway. And it looks like James is going to be talking about a book, which is good because it's due today. But it doesn't really matter because the library is closed tomorrow, so you could even look at it for longer.
Well, that's good because it's worth it. Do you want me to talk about it first?
You can talk about it first. Well,
Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Parks. I think they say Teton. It should be Teton. I think it should be something like Teton in French. You can figure out what it means in French. Just look that up in your French-English vocabularies. Yellowstone is fairly obvious. But this, Lonely Planet, I think they started off on a shoestring. So they've actually got the founders of the Lonely Planet company here. Very small picture. It's kind of cute. It looks as though they started in 1972, just traveling around the country. Kind of like what we do. Mm-hmm. But now, for the longest time, they had basically like line drawings and pretty simple maps, maybe two color things outside of black and white. Well, one color really, but outside of black and white. But now they got pictures in here. It's not as fancy as some of the things, particularly that you get from Europe, but it still is pretty fancy. It's got day drives or whatever, particular things that you can do, and it's also looks as though it's got some hikes. Kind of wish they had more in here on hikes, because I don't think it's anywhere near complete. I can't say definitively until I go through it in its entirety, but great picture of a bear on the front cover, almost red eyes, so sort of thing you don't want to be getting up close and personal with. And it looks as though it's a grizzly, eh? It's got that big hump there, so yeah. It does look grizzly too, but apparently that's not what you look for. You look for the hump. I was going to say run, but don't run. Back away slowly, very slowly, or else you might become prey. Anyway, it looks pretty good. I wouldn't waste, what is it, they say, American, something like $20. This is quite recent.
I think it's worth it. But
it depends on what you want.
We got it from the local public library.
Of course, if you can get it from a library.
It was great.
Yeah, so this is about a little less than a year old and stuff like that. So that's a fairly current price.
So if you have something like that, you can always just, there's some husk in that. You can always just write down which hikes you want to go to.
Sure.
And just, you don't need to buy the book.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. But I think it's well worth looking through if you're interested.
And there's some pretty pictures in there.
Well, there's some pretty pictures. Yeah. Exactly right. So you're going to get a bit of an idea. Mm-hmm. Usually when you see pretty pictures from someplace like New York or whatever, you don't necessarily realize how grungy the whole experience is going to be. I mean, you can be selective and go to art galleries and go to the Met or go to off Broadway or whatever. But you know, usually if you go to mountain parks in Canada, the United States, you're gonna see lots of stuff that they just won't be able. You know, one of the most amazing things now that I think about it is, do you remember Stanley Falls? Yeah, it's amazing. But you know, the thing that I take away from that is you can get it from driving. It's that I think they call it something like the unbroken chain or the continuous chain. It's just like one mountain that just goes on for miles and miles and miles. A big long mountain. I think Stanley, the river that goes over Stanley Falls, is kind of busts through it, or it might be a little bit at the end of it. But it's absolutely freaky. You almost go off the road, keeping on looking at it, saying, "Goodness me," saying, "How long is it going to go on?" So I maybe seen a few pictures of that, one or two. It's there's so many things up there in the mountains. You know, so many mountains. You can't. It'd be almost impossible to memorize all the names just in one particular part of the mountains. So, and it seems like, you know, you think of Jasper, and there's huge differences. Even when you're on Highway 93, you know, where you go from the ice fields, people might not necessarily like the ice fields. You just go on a few miles, and you're by that kind of like that Bridal Falls or whatever it is, where you're starting to come down from the Sunwapta Pass. And then you're going by Stanley Falls. You're down in these kind of weird flats between these mountain ranges, right? You go a little further, and you're going by some falls, like a couple of big, Athabasca Falls. I forget the other one. I don't forget the images, but I forgot the name right now. And then you go a little bit down lower, and you get to the what is it, Five Lakes walk or trail, and it's kind of like swampy down there, but it's up and down. It's very weird sort of thing. When you get down a little bit further around Jasper, it's kind of swampy in there, where some rivers meet. Of course, there are mountains all over the place and different kind of walks. I mean, we went on one walk that you didn't like that much. Paris liked it because there was a lot of horse poop for her to chow down on. But it was there had been a lot of horses on there, and it was kind of muddy. Yeah, that particular.
It was so gross.
Yeah, but you know, I kind of tried to get my head up every so occasionally, in between stepping around various horse leavings and things like that. I've even got good memories of that. When we got to the end of it, there was Pauline doesn't really care for big panoramic views.
No.
But, everyone's got different tastes. A lot of people like those. I kind of like that. I'm not as big on them as a lot of people are, but
well, the thing is I can get those big views on a lot of other trails that have a waterfall on them as well.
Yeah, exactly right.
Like
well, that's kind of like what I'm saying about these mountain parks. It's incredible. If you actually get out of the town and get walking, you see so much. So much. The pictures just can't do it justice, really. You know, they can take a few, kind of like stock pictures or whatever. It doesn't matter how good the picture, you're going to see some amazing stuff when you get out and about. Anyway, that's enough for that. So it comes recommended, but don't necessarily, if you got lots of money, like if you're Conrad Black or some fella, I almost said something different, like that, then keep these guys going. So, were you wanting to talk about Vera? Do you want me to hold that up a little bit, or?
Do you want my apple?
Yeah, I love those apples. Galas, I think those look like it.
So, we watched that the other day.
Pretty well all the way through, right?
Yeah,
I slept through some of it.
I know, I slept through quite a lot. So then I watched that disc over again.
Yeah, because you kind of like it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I find it so cute, she's...
oh, for sure.
I can't see her making it any police department in North America, but maybe it's different in the British Isles.
Well, they've made her up so she looks like a cross between Columbo and Paddington Bear. So who wouldn't like
That
that?
is hilarious. I didn't get the Columbo thing, but she's kind. I didn't get the Paddington Bear thing, but she is kind of like a stuffed toy or something like that. So
I'm all sniffly now because I'm not supposed to eat dairy because
Oh.
I have a sensitivity to dairy.
I
But
thought you were getting sentimental about
No.
Paddington Bear.
I'm also
Columbo stick.
phlegmy from it.
But when you were a kid, you used to like Columbo, right? Kind of,
Oh,
sort of. There we go.
still
I
do.
used to like it. He was great. Like he's just the kind of guy that you underestimate. And then he'd be asking these barbed questions. He's the one I think who did that the best of them all. He's all in this trench coat that he looked as though he slept in it. And all that sort of stuff. Just the sort of person that people underestimate. I didn't get the impression he was tall. One of the most asymmetrical faces I think ever. Like one eyebrow was way higher or something like that than the other.
So I made my oatmeal today with apple juice instead of water. So it was apple cinnamon.
Yeah, pretty good. That's
and
a
with the
common
yogurt.
combo
So this
people
was
like.
a very fancy yogurt oatmeal thing for me.
I wonder why you sniffle. You think you're a bit allergic to milk or something like that? Too bad. But it hasn't got significantly worse, has it?
Oh, it just makes me phlegmy and stuff.
Yeah.
And it gets me depressed, but I'm already depressed. It's not like... Anyway, but no, this yogurt gets the Paris seal of approval. So I decided, I'll treat myself, let myself have some.
Paris is our oldest dog.
She loves yogurt, but
just turned 13.
She loves particular brands of yogurt. So
Yeah, sometimes she doesn't go after.
Sometimes she's like, nope, that one's not food.
Not food.
But
we did want to do a show on. It's a consumer report thing based on what varies animals eat. I mean, the bottom line is what are bugs going to eat, right? Because you found a pattern, right? Have you mentioned it?
Yeah.
On air?
When I had a parrot, all sorts of insects had come in on her food. And I've just stuck to my teeth now. And I had my flowers stored just on the bottom shelf in my kitchen, and I then had bugs in my flour, but they did not touch the all-purpose flour when I had that, because I didn't know any better.
A better terminology would be no-purpose flour.
Yes, and then they also went after, or they didn't go after, so they didn't go after the all-purpose flour, they didn't go after the whole wheat flour, but they were just filled in, like they went after that rye flour like crazy. So from there on in, I bought rye flour. Because I thought, well, if the bugs aren't going to eat that other stuff, that's not food.
The bug seal of approval.
Yeah.
Right there.
So, anyway.
You know whose else seal of approval you're getting? Our regular fan is back.
Yes.
In the lilacs there. I think it's the same individual.
I think it is, yeah.
I really love the accolades it's giving us. It's very... I think it's telling us to get low, so we can eat some crumbs.
What I do is I put the leftover pie that I bring home pie, and the dogs eat that. And then what they don't want out of the pie for the day, I put there, and then the birds peck at it. No. So he's probably looking at that pie and thinking, why aren't they moving so I can go after that pie?
Yeah.
But,
he might just be telling us to get lost, but I'd like to think he's cheering on our efforts.
Anyway, I was going to talk about this Heidegger's Being in Time, Lecture 23, but I'll just talk about it the next time. We'll probably come out again today.
It could be. Maybe after school, something like that, right?
Whatever. But
or maybe just before I
don't know.
Yeah, Heidegger's a tough one. You don't want to